Good afternoon and welcome to another episode of the Rugby Scoop podcast. Not by myself. I'm joined by the usual crew. We've got Willemse all the way in Russia, head coach of the Russian Sevens team, former South African Sevens player. And then we've got Jade, the weatherman, always hot in Bloemfontein. A couple of clippies. Will obviously get anybody warm. And then we've got the gardener all the way in the UK, Hugh Griffin, the stats man, joining us as well. Gentlemen, we've got plenty to cover this particular weekend. Lots of rugby, lots of news making headlines. But before that, Vickers, how was the weekend? How's everything in Russia? Starting to get cold. I know Jade doesn't want to talk about the weather, but obviously the impact that has on rugby trainings in Russia, frozen fields, ice cold hands. How's everything that side? How are you doing?
Yeah, all good, brother. All good. Glad to be back. Hello, everyone. I think for me, last 3 weeks to push, and then I'm coming home early, which is pretty good.
Can't wait for the South African stuff. Kid December, huh? Is that the rush? Because Braifvlees and Chevrolet.
Braifvlees. I already have a date.
Whoa. What kind of a date?
No, I mean, a date when I'm putting the fire on, bro.
No, I'm kidding.
It's already Saturday the 16th.
Okay. No, I'm pulling your leg. Jade, how are things that side in Bloemfontein? I hear that there's not a lot of rugby going on. Great college, things are quiet, obviously, training for next season. But everything else, Makufe last week, or still Babalas from Makufe?
Now we chilled, bro. We're waiting for Vic's arrival to South Africa. We're gonna wait for him at our tumble with Braifvlees. We will wait for you with Braifvlees. Nah, it's all chilled aside, bro. We're doing well.
You must hold up those stickers there at the airport for Vuyo with the big name.
Yeah, we'll come with a plate. Keep a plate.
No, yeah. Scuffed in at the airport. Anyway, Hugh Griffin, autumn leaves are falling in the UK. How's it going?
It's more than that at the moment. We've had a storm in the UK. It was lashing down with rain earlier, which is just how we like it. So it's very much going to be staying inside kind of day.
No, fair enough. Yeah, guys, before we kick things off, I would like to wish, or I would like to say good luck to the South African women's cricket team. This rivalry between New Zealand and South Africa is getting out of hand. Even in cricket now, there's another final, ICC T20 final. I think it just kicked off right now as we started this conversation. And also news making headlines this week. I think England have also announced their squad for the autumn series. We heard Stephen Kisthoff, his future in rugby remains uncertain as a medical specialist set to determine whether he will return on the field. But no one is quite sure when that time will be. Stephen Kisthoff suffered a neck injury in September during the Currie Cup competition this year. So this is a developing story. So we will hear a lot of information, obviously, as time goes on. Jade, I mean, Stephen Kisthoff, a prominent member of the Springbok side. I mean, your thoughts. I mean, how much of an impact would this be in terms of basically, I don't know, in terms of finding a substitute for Stephen Kisthoff if he doesn't overcome this particular almost ultimately career ending injury?
No, look, I mean, first of all, let's not just speculate. I mean, let's give it time and see what happens once his results come out. And I'm pretty much sure Dobbo and the Stormers team will keep us well informed with that. I mean, I'm not going to talk on saying that his career is over because we're still waiting on that. But I mean, for South Africa, we're lucky that, Oxen Chase came through. And I mean, he's been such a world-class prop so that we haven't really seen the gap that Kisthoff has left. I mean, he's been a world-class prop for, I think he's been the best lucid in the world before Ox came on the scene. So from the period of 2017, 18, 19 through until about last year, he's been absolutely class in the Bok team. And I mean, he's been class for the Stormers as well. I mean, look at the cameos he played when they won the URC. He's been playing 70 minutes almost every game, and so being a good captain as well. I mean, he showed that leadership as well. So, I mean, I'm not going to give a tribute to him. I mean, we don't yet know if it's over or we don't yet know what's the medical thing. But I mean, I hope he can overcome this, and I hope a miracle can happen and we can see him on the field again because he's still 32. I was hoping he'd get to 100 caps. I mean, because he really started playing from a young age,
Yeah, no, 100%. And also great weekend for Dutch rugby. Obviously, it's a pity that the Delta team couldn't beat the Romanian Wolves over the weekend, but club I'm involved with, Rotterdam Rugby Club, still remaining on top of the log following a good second half performance, that is. See the Dukes also beat HRC, Breda beating Diok, which was a big upset over the weekend. Also news coming from the Springbok side of things. Salman Murat also injured, so he won't be taking part in the November Autumn Series. Hugh, Asenathi Ntlabakanye, the prop for the Lions. I hear that the French club Toulouse are really trying to reel him in, and obviously they're willing to pay big bucks to buy him out of his contract. I mean, looking at a prop like Ntlabakanye, he's literally silenced a lot of his critics because a lot of people thought he was overweight, but he's shown great footwork. He's shown great levels of endurance on the park. And I mean, how much do you think a player like him would contribute, and how well do you think he would settle within the French top 14?
Do you remember in the Rugby World Cup where Eddie Jones did that advert where he said, "We're not going to France for the croissants"? I think Ntlabakanye has a different view. I think there's probably a croissant seller somewhere in Toulouse who's just put a deposit down on a new house based off this news. No, I think, well, firstly, for him to get this move to Toulouse, the biggest club side in Europe, the Real Madrid of club rugby, it's a fantastic thing for him, for his career. He's obviously not in the picture with the Springboks. I think he was in a Springbok alignment camp early this year. I can't remember, but he's well down the pecking order in that list. So for his career, for his opportunity, for the money that he could earn doing this, is absolutely fantastic. Will he suit the top 14? I think he will. If you look at someone like Ben Tammifuna, has been a huge hit at Bordeaux. Maybe Ntlabakanye isn't quite on Ben Tammifuna's level, but both big men, and a lot of the top 14 games, maybe he won't be first choice, maybe he won't start the big matches for Toulouse, but for those week in, week out trips on the road, Castres away, Clermont away, I think he'd be perfect for that. A lot of the top 14 games are very attritional, very stop-start, very play between the 10 metres. And he won't necessarily be required to do lots of the jouet, offloading, running rugby that Toulouse are known for. He can literally stand on halfway with his hands on his hips and wait for the next scrum. And I think that'll suit him perfectly. And I think if he can scrummage successfully. And I think if he can bring the same character that we've seen in the URC, he's a cult figure in the URC for the Lions. If he can do the same for Toulouse, I think he'll be very popular over there. So it's a big loss to the Lions if he does go, and it's a big loss to the URC. But I think he would be a big success at Toulouse.
Croissants and baguettes, yeah? Because I know someone who's not eating croissants is the legendary Perry Baker, who announced his retirement from men's sevens international footy. Vickers, you as a professional rugby coach in the Sevens circuit, you've played in this department as well. I mean, a player like Perry Baker, from a coaching perspective, I mean, is he a dream to have in your team, or would he have been a dream to have in one of your sides? And maybe take us through some of your career highlights when you were coaching, when you were with Paul True, and obviously with Kenya, and now Russia and Germany, and you've been quite around within the circuit as a player and as a coach. How much of an influence has Perry Baker had in sevens rugby?
Yeah, I think it's probably one of the sad news for USA, but obviously they would be celebrating his career. I think for me the most important was with Perry was that when Perry stepped onto the scene, USA Rugby Sevens was literally in a middle table, or I could even say a middle to bottom table, and they weren't really a threat to any of the Sevens teams until Perry came in with his wing partner, Colin Niles. They literally transformed the sport. They transformed the team for the USA with obviously Mike Friday's leadership. I think for me the most important was when you're having those two players in your system, you knew you had outright pace, one starting, one on the bench, and just literally a like for like subs. I think Perry, one of the most I've seen from Perry, I mean, they showed it this past week on the World Rugby Sevens, was when he was playing against Fiji in the USA, he literally got the ball in the stand start on his try line, jinxed himself around, burnt a couple of guys on the outside, and finished the try. I think those are the one of the most impressive things about Perry was his agility to move quickly in the first, especially those first 5 meters. He would burn it quickly. Yeah, and obviously he will probably go on and talk about the year that they almost won the World Series. I think they came second. That year they dominated the series, and that's when Perry was really at the peak of his career with Carlin, and they was literally taking they were taking all the teams to prison. So yeah, so it's just, I think for me it's a wonderful thing that Perry to be involved in sevens. It was such an eye opener, especially coming from South Africa, with having Sabelo Senatla as a sprint as a quick player on the wing, and having him to play against Perry. And even when I moved to Kenya, Collins Njeri was one of those guys I used to obviously try and talk to about how Perry's game is. And yeah, I think, look, you can only celebrate such a career. I think over 10 years in the team has been wonderful. Hope to see him playing for maybe 15s, 1 or 2 games, but I don't know. He's 30, I think 37 years old or 38. So probably no chance for him.
Yeah, I mean, wouldn't they find space for him even in the US 15s men's team? No, I guess not.
Yeah, I think it's because of the age, Scoop.
Yeah.
I think because he's quite old. He made his debut quite late with the USA Sevens team. So I think that's the thing. I don't see how they would get involved, but I think he will probably still continue playing domestic rugby, and obviously probably being roped in part of the coaching team, maybe for the juniors going forward.
No, fair enough. Guys, yes, still to come. I mean, we still going to do our breakdown of the URC matches that took place over the weekend. We are still going to touch on the NPC and what the finals are looking like. We're going to touch on the fixture between New Zealand and Japan taking place next week as well. But also in other news, World Rugby Chairman Bill Beaumont also shared his thoughts about rugby substitution policy, saying that there's too many substitutes. But I don't know how South African fans feel about this particular aspect. But I saw Rassie had kind of responded via his Twitter handle as well. Argentina head coach Filippo Contempomi has backed the idea of the British and Irish Lions touring South America. That would be nice. Instead of the British and Irish Lions only traveling to New Zealand, South Africa, and Australia, would be a nice inclusion for the global game if they would travel to Argentina as well. Jack Willis is closing in on signing a new 4-year deal with Toulouse. Well, this will prohibit his chances of making the English side, unfortunately. But yeah, if the deal goes through, then, I mean, he's already 27 now, so that'll take him to 31 years old. So yeah, I don't see him then. He's probably not committed to playing for England anytime soon. But nonetheless, moving on to URC, starting off, the Happy Scarlets in Wales, Hugh Griffin, as Ndabezinto just joined the space to listen in. Blue Bulls, Jake White's Bulls, losing against the Scarlets. Hugh, you're a happy man. Definitely share with us your thoughts regarding this particular game. And obviously, to pull one over Jake White's Bulls is quite massive, especially for the Scarlets.
Oh, absolutely. I was absolutely delighted. So we were previewing the game and we were worried. We'd seen what they'd done to the Ospreys the week before. We've seen the roster that the Bulls have got, and it was scary. But then when they announced the team, we'd seen that they rotated a little bit, and we thought, maybe they're not taking us that seriously. You know, they had obviously identified Ospreys as the tough game and Scarlets as the easier game based on last season. But based on this season, that doesn't seem to be the way that it's working out. And from a Scarlets point of view, I was really pleased with how our pack fronted up in this game. So for people who don't know Welsh rugby too well, it's kind of, the perception is that the Scarlets have the weakest pack or have a weak pack. So it's kind of like Bulls and Stormers, where the Bulls are thought of being the pack team and the Stormers are the running team. In Wales, the Ospreys are the pack team and the Scarlets are the running team. And all of last season, the narrative, the last few seasons really, has been about the weakness in the Scarlets pack. So we've made some recruitments. The pack is coached by Albert van den Berg, who I know some of you know. And in the last couple of games of last season and the start of this season, we've started to see the Scarlets pack has a bit of an edge about it. And before the game, Tane Plumtree was interviewed and he said that we have to go into this game believing that we can take on this Bulls pack, which is obviously a big statement because the Bulls arguably have the best pack, if not in URC, then, you know, in the top 3 for club rugby, full stop. And I thought it was really interesting that the Scarlets' first try, we took the tap and go, so we had a penalty. It was right in front of the sticks. It would have been an easy 3 points, but Josh McLeod, the captain, opted for a tap and go, and we scored from it. And I think that was a huge psychological moment in the game. It was the Scarlets proving to themselves that they could take on the Bulls physically, and it worked out. And going into the second half, we got a little bit lucky a couple of times, but I think we managed the game a lot better. Sam Costello came off the bench. I thought he kicked from hand excellently. And yeah, it's a massive result for the Scarlets for us to get that result over such a good team, for Dwayne Peel, our coach, to get a result over World Cup winning coach in Jake White. It was unexpected. It was tight. It was nerve-wracking. Tom Rogers, our winger, our own scrum cat winger, we have them in Wales too, skinning Kirtley Aaron, Søren Kane and Moody and handing off Papier on the way to the line was great to see. That's been very popular. So it was a very unexpected result, and I'm very pleased with the forward pack of the Scarlets this season has really stepped up, and just the team has an edge about it that it didn't last year. So from the Bulls' point of view, like, I think you can pick holes in it, but I just think, you know, it just shows the league is that you can't take any games for granted, and maybe the Bulls took it for a little bit for granted. I don't know.
100%, you 100%. You've mentioned something that I was going to bring into this particular conversation and this chat towards Jade. Jade, this week we heard Ireland, we heard French Rugby Union They are against the 20-minute red card element. But from a Jake White's perspective, last week they copped a red card, which then later got rescinded. This past weekend, they also got another red card. There's elements within the Bulls game where I guess the officials are seeing a lot of foul play in these moments. And also, one part I also wanted to target was the scrums element within URC as well, in terms of stronger teams, especially the South African teams, which have a stronger set piece game, like the scrums element, not being rewarded and obviously gaining that momentum. It seems to be obviously the narrative, it seems to be the mandate of the URC, but how much of an impact does it have on a team that's wanting to use or wanting to operate or wanting to use the scrum as a platform to attack? How much of an impact does this have in terms of looking at a Blue Bulls, for example? Hugh just mentioned the Bulls as probably one of the top 3 sides of having one of the best forward packs within the competition. So, yeah, I mean, looking at that game, what are your thoughts regarding Jake White's approach? What are your thoughts regarding 20-minute red card conversation and obviously the set piece not being rewarded? So I know it's a mouthful.
Yo, what a question. Now, look, if I can start off with the Bulls, and I totally agree with what you said there. I think they took Scarlets a little bit lightly and they underestimated them a little bit based on last season's results. And, they got caught with their pants down. You had red card or no red card, or so you expect the Bulls team to put that Scarlets team away. But I still believe that, home ground advantage plays a big role in global competition. So, Scarlets has improved since last year, and I think the Bulls a little bit underestimated them, and they got caught with their pants down. In terms of the 20-minute red card, I mean, I've had my thoughts on this, and we all made our thoughts on this. But, I mean, this topic has been going on for years, and it's always, it's good to say 20-minute red cards or red cards ruin a game, or red cards don't ruin a game. You need to tackle right, whatever, player safety, player welfare, etc., etc. But then there's a big possibility of getting soft red cards. And we've seen it with the Bulls this last 2 weeks. I mean, for me, Grobler this weekend, I think a little bit harsh. And then last week as well, David Kriel as well, the red card got overturned. The rule got overturned, so we got the ban. So for me, if you're going to have those decisions and you're going to have those debates whether it is a red card or not, and how a game flows after a team gets a red card, what happens? And I mean, now this sport is result orientated, and playing with 14 men does hamper you as well. So that also plays a big role into it. So obviously, we can have mixed thoughts in terms of the red card or not. I can understand, the French and the Irish, stating their claim in terms of the red card. I can understand that down south, how they feel about the red card. I mean, just look what happened in the World Cup final. So the IRB has just got to come to a decision and to a mandate. And we got to go with it for the next few years. I mean, we don't want another change. We don't want the 20-minute red card to come in, and I've seen us come in again with, but if it's intentional, you're off the field. But if it's not intentional, it's 20 minutes. So there is that borderline. Who's making that decision? We don't want that whole confusion and everything. We want it to be straightforward. Have the rule written down, and we move on from there, because we can't chop and change the rule every year. That's how I feel totally about the 20-minute red card. I think, we just going to have to play on when we do get a decision from the IRB, whether it stays or whether it goes. But I just want, consistency in terms of the rules for the next few years. In terms of scrums, sometimes, I've got a lot of knowledge on scrumming. I've got a lot of knowledge on terms of, props, loose set, tight heads. When I watch a scrum, I can always say, okay, this team is scrumming early. This team is doing this. This is tight head's fault. That loose head's fault there. But sometimes I don't even think the referees can control a scrum. And sometimes I think the mandate now in world rugby is getting the ball so quickly out of that scrum that they don't even allow the second shove at times. I've seen it so much in the championship in Super Rugby, and I'm seeing glimpses of it in the URC as well. I don't know if you on the circuit as a referee. I don't know. I mean, Paula, you on the circuit as a referee. I don't know if that is mentioned that, trying to get the ball out as quick as possible. But I mean, for me, I think South Africa has been one thing under Rassie, especially. There's been a huge dominance at scrum time, and it's a platform that they use, and it's a big weapon, that they do use. So I don't know, is this seen as just to counter South Africa and to counter the scrums because, they get the most scrum penalties or so. But, it's just frustrating watching rugby at times. And, the ball's at the back of the scrum. You can see the 8 trying to get a counter shove and the referee saying use it. Or, you don't even see, the referee doesn't even allow, the fair contest at scrum time, Sometimes I've even seen a few times where the ref standing on the wrong side of the scrum and making a decision as well, penalizing the wrong prop at times. So for me, it's all of those things in the game. I just feel that scrum, yes, Africa's very, very dominant at scrum time, but I just feel that, for me now, the laws at the moment is going against scrum dominance, especially when the ball's at the 8-man's feet. The ref is too hasty sometimes, and I'm not even sure if it's a mandate, if it's a written rule, in international rugby. I know in Super Rugby they want the ball out, but I'm not sure in the URC there's a mandate that referees are getting, or what's been spoken at the IRB level as well.
In 2024, Jade Craig is still calling it the IRB. World Rugby, Jade. World Rugby. Vickers.
Same thing, bro.
Vickers, your thoughts on the Bulls before we jump on to the Sharks and Glasgow Warriors?
Yeah, I would agree with Hugh, what Hugh said. I think for me, watching the game, I got frustrated because I felt like the ref sort of let the breakdowns a little bit loose. He wasn't pretty sure on a couple of things in terms of making that first decision, and he let that breakdown die, as the rugby term says. You don't want to let the breakdown die because then you've already missed a couple of things. But he did have it a couple of times. And I did feel, obviously, the Bulls were dominant. They missed a lot of chances. I think they should have taken that game 100%, but they missed a lot of chances, especially one or two line-out to miss throws or, I think, look, the Scarlets fought their way into the game. And I think that's what's impressive. They fought their way into the game. They found a way to frustrate the Bulls. They found a way to create the mistakes for the Bulls, which goes credit to them. And yeah, I think, look, if you are Scarlets at this point, you're probably in a high because that is one of the games that you never banked on winning, and you just come up winning. But even though it was a home game, on something else now in terms of the scrums, I still don't understand how. As a coach, I can understand if there used to be a call where it said ear to ear before the engagement. These days, I can see a clear gap. I can probably put a side pad, like a pad from the touchline in between the scrums, which means on the hit, they go down because of the pressure. So for me, I still don't understand how we get to the point where a ref is allowing the scrum to continue when you can clearly see there's a gap between the two props. Where are the days gone where we used to be calling ear to ear? What's happened? I don't know. Has that changed? So I feel that's where a lot of mistakes are happening within the refereeing department itself. And I would hope that it's something that can be talked about. And I still feel if it's your choice as a team to use your ball at the back of the scrum, it should be the same as the breakdown, as a maul, sorry. Should be the same as a maul. It's use it once, and if you're not going forward, then the ref should say use it or lose it. That should be where we're going, instead of just having use the ball and the team is just getting prepared to get their second shove. So there should be that grace where you're allowed to at least get the second shove. And yes, if the second shove is not happening, then by all means use the ball. And I think that's where I would like to see the change when it comes to that scrum law.
Fair enough, Vickers. Fair enough. Still sticking with you. Jumping into Durban. There's a deep blue water into that shark tank. Indian Ocean. Warm waters. Tiger sharks are found in the Indian Ocean, apparently. Don't quote me, guys. Don't quote me on this. But nonetheless, Glasgow Warriors had a Nice little trip down on the east coast of South Africa. They are the defending champions of the URC. The Sharks are the defending champions of EPCR. So this was a blockbuster game. This was a headliner of this weekend. Great start from the Sharks. Star-studded team. Actually, we can almost call them Springbok Light, that Sharks team. Springbok Light. Very good start. They look to be dominant. They look to be using their physicality, but Warriors were not going away because they were not going away. Up until the last minute of the game, they were not going away. I mean, even if you look at the results as well, that's how much fight. Also, looking at how the Scarlets just stuck into their game plan and also were not going away from the Blue Bulls on Friday. But the Warriors were doing the exact same thing against a star-studded Sharks. Not to say the Warriors don't have any internationals. They also have internationals. But Vickers, your overview of the Sharks' performance and who impressed you. I was impressed with a few carries from Mapimpi and some deft touches from his grabber kicks as well. Well-weighted kicks in that sense. And also the direction, man. Come on. I think Mapimpi has literally grown in terms of intelligence. He might not have the speed, but the intelligence of how to play and when to play, kicking at the right time. His aerial skills have been great for the past 4 to 5 years. And then we look at a player like Apelele Fasi as well, claiming man of the match in a very tightly contested game. Willemse also claimed the man of the match. There's also a battle of the 15 jersey with the Springboks squad who's going to tour down, up here, up north. But there's so many elements, there's so many dynamics, so many moving parts in this particular game. For you, the Sharks, how did they perform? How would you rate them? And obviously some technical issues that you see from a game plan perspective from the Sharks approach.
Yeah, I think, look, if you look at the game, how they started well. I think for me, there wasn't much that I picked up. I think we've had the conversations over the last two weekends when it comes to the Sharks. I didn't see anything different in terms of their approach. I just saw better players on the field. Like you said, the way that Mapimpi performed, Fasi performed. I thought Oxenchair was brilliant with his carries as well. There's something, man, about Fasi. He's just playing with so much confidence. And all of a sudden, it just feels like he's got so much time on the ball, making the right decisions. I really think the Springbok caps and the time he spent with the Springboks has given him so much confidence. I just hope now that he just continues to maintain and not try anything new, just to continue playing, making sure his basics are good, making sure that is giving is making the right decisions on the field. When I see the Sharks, what they've changed, the only thing I could have noticed, I'm not sure if the other guys would agree, it's only the rush defense. At some point there, it felt like, wow, they were getting off that line. They were going hard at Glasgow. So I felt there was a shift in defense, and how we got to that shift, I'm not sure, because obviously Sia, Urban, Lucanio, and obviously my pimps came back. They all came back. So maybe there was a little bit of influence on how that strategy would have changed. Glasgow, always brilliant on the ball. Glasgow are always looking to make the defense make decisions, and I think that's what they did last night. They just forced the Sharks to make decisions, and the more we saw from the from Glasgow attack, the more they were hitting those holes that were not supposed to be there against the Sharks. And then I think just in terms of the tactical change, moving from Jordan to fly half, I don't think it was bad, but I also don't think it was a good showing. I think maybe the coaches might have to look at bringing Sia back and see how it goes. But I know Jordan's obviously has got much more potential and attributes than Sia. But in terms of your running game, in terms of who you have on your centers, and who you have on your outside backs. I don't know if I think maybe Sia will give those guys a little bit more. But it was good to see Andre yesterday going, taking up a couple of hits on the ball. Lucania was a little bit quiet until the second half. I also thought he obviously is trying to adjust. And I mean, we have to also remember, guys, some of these guys weren't part of this team for a while now. So I think they've also missed that connection with the coaches and connection with each other in terms of understanding. So yeah, I think for me, the Sharks did well to win the game, but I still feel there's still a lot more to improve on.
Yeah, Jade.
No, look, I mean, I still think the Sharks are going to electric slide, the whole season through, and one step forward, two steps back, the whole season. That's the way they're going to go this season, But I mean, like we all just said there, I want to say, I also think that, the impact that Eben, Sia, those box guys had, especially with the defense, that intensity on the defense that they brought from the box down. I mean, that's what you expect to see from box. And I think they had a big goal and a big say in that rush defense yesterday. But I want to touch a little bit on Fassi. And I want to play you, Scoop. I want to bring you into this because you've watched a lot about it. But doesn't Fassi remind you so much of Israel Dag and Israel Folau? The way he has time on the board, the way he's got that X factor now, the way he's just, when he gets the ball, something happens, I think this season has really been, we're starting to become world class at the moment. And I really, really, now I was always touch and go in terms of Fassi, but now this guy he's starting to become world class. He reminds me so much of Israel Folau and Israel Dag in their prime.
Yeah, man. I think he's got very good touches, and I think actually just looking back, I think there was a time when there was a lot of conversation around his maturity, behavioral antics off the field. And I think Joey at some point had to kind of step in and have conversations, honest conversations with him. And I think there was a change. That was probably about 2.5 years ago, or something like that. And there's been a change in attitude. There's been a change in behavior. Maybe sometimes players, when they come onto the scene, they think they deserve to be in positions, but then obviously reality of the fact comes in and it hits you hard, right? But then it's how you respond from those situations. And I think Fassi has grown in this past 2 years as a player, as a person as well. But obviously, looking at how much his game has developed, obviously understanding the other details of a Willie Leroux assisting him in those Springbok camps and having conversations, and obviously finding new ways or new areas where to develop. I mean, at the Sharks now, even that game yesterday, the way he recognized spaces, that quick tap and scoring the try, that game sense and maturity in those aspects, the way he times his runs and the way he finds gaps just outside the 13 channel between obviously the 50-meter channel and the touchline. And he had a few of those. And also the kicking game has improved as well, even during the rugby championship. Aerial skills, he's unmatched at this point. And those aerial skills, the way he jumps, and you look at the way Israel Folau used to jump and catch the ball. He almost kind of has the same technique with that 1 foot up at a 90-degree angle, so ready to protect himself and be strong in that area while he's in the air as well, right? Obviously, it's a pity against Wales. That foot was caught up standing upright, and it caught one of the players, I think, on the shoulder, the Welsh players on the shoulder in that Qatar Airways Cup. But yeah, Jade, I mean, he's grown in leaps and bounds. He's developed over the months and he's developed a lot. And like viewer said, I think it's helped him a lot to get the start, or for Rassie to have the faith to give him the start, right? I mean, Rassie could have chosen Willie Leroux in the rugby championship, but he went ahead and chose Fassi. And also to have that ability to give your player that much confidence by giving him a start after each game, the players also gain confidence. And once they gain confidence and see the trust from the coach, the players want to replicate that on the field as well and say, hey, thank you very much for picking me, but I'm also gonna show you why you should keep picking me going forward as well. So it's those things that also help a player mentally to develop and be a better player. Hugh, your thoughts on that game over the weekend?
Yeah, I thought it was a really high quality game. I thought it was, I'll be honest, I've seen Six Nation matches around that level, so I don't think it was too far off test quality. I think Vio's right. I think the change of personnel for the Sharks was the biggest difference. It's interesting looking at the Sharks stats from last year. They played wide, second most of anybody in the URC last season, and they're still desperate to get the ball wide in this team. And I don't think it's the right game plan for the players. Yes, we know that the Boks under Tony Brown have become a much more expansive attacking team compared to where they were previously, but they're still not the widest, most all-out attacking team, at least ball in hand wise, in the rugby championship or in Test rugby. And I just don't think that Plumtree is still using the right game plan for these players. Yes, okay, they got the win at the end. I think the bench made a huge difference. Grant Williams on the bench in a club game, that's amazing. That just shows the depth. Even Leinster don't have a second choice scrum half that good. Even if Grant Williams is second choice, you could argue that he's better than Janji's. That's up for debate, but or Hendricks, sorry. Glasgow, I thought, will they be disappointed? Obviously, their discipline really let them down. The penalty count against them, I think they had 9 or 10 in the first half, penalties against them. Some I thought were a bit harsh. It wasn't my favourite refereeing the game, let's just say, but we'll move on from that. But to score the late tries at the end, to come away with 2 losing bonus points, I think is a decent enough return for them. And I do think they stood up. And at times, if you look at the stats behind the games and things, I did think that Glasgow were the better side at times. But, the scoreline is the only stat that matters. I don't think the Sharks are fixed. I think if John Plumtree's idea of solution is just to play all his Springboks all at the same time every week, that's not a solution. So I still think of the two, Glasgow are more likely to make a URC final than the Sharks, based on what I saw yesterday.
Yeah, fair enough. Vickers, moving to Cape Town, looking at the number 10 jersey, 2 weekends now back to back. For me, from sitting outside, watching what's happening down there, things don't look very settled, just from a Stormers perspective. I know Scrumming Flower, you're a big Stormers fan, but nonetheless, there's a Damian Willemse coming from injury, and now trying to prove, or it seems like he's got a point to prove, trying to make that number 10 jersey his. Obviously, we understand that the Stormers have plenty of depth, as well as the Springboks. A lot of players are fighting for jerseys at this point, at the Stormers level and at the Springbok level. And obviously, the consistency that comes with it. Last week, Friday, Damien wasn't all that great, but this past Saturday against Munster, he really showed his old ways, if I may call it. I mean, it almost reminded us or the public of his former glory days at Paul Roos High. The way he carried, the way he wanted to sidestep, the way he wanted the ball in his hands, basically, and some of the neat touches on the drop goal as well. He was everywhere on Saturday. Looking at the Stormers' performance and looking at Damian Willemse as a 10, what are your thoughts regarding this particular aspect?
Yeah, look, I thought Damien had a decent game, 100%. He deserved the man of the match. But I still wouldn't go far as to say that he is back to performing playing top rugby. You guys must remember there's 5 players. It's Damien, Warwick, Mani, Damien Willemse, Sasha, Mani, and Geland. They're fighting basically for 2 positions, as we've seen that they're not going to give the Damien a chance at center. So they'll probably keep they'll probably keep Rowan Nel and obviously Du Plessis. I don't know if there will be a change, but for me, what I noticed yesterday is that Damien at 10 tried to almost play so flat that he was obviously caught taking a lot of contact. Well, it could be a tactic, but I'm not sure. But I think for me, every time he took on contact, there wasn't anyone behind the first pot, and there was no direction from the team. And I think that's where Mani comes in and is better on that jersey because of the fact that Mani doesn't take a lot of contact. He's always distributing, so he's always calling the shots. Whereas now with Willemse, he was in terms of on the ground, and there was no one there to take charge. I don't think a guy like Dan Du Plessis is that kind of a playmaking role player that he could be able to take a chance. Yes, maybe Warwick Gelang could do it, but he was also obviously a little bit out wide, and he didn't come in to help. I think at the moment there's not much we can discuss about the Stormers in terms of that performance. The only thing I can say is how Munster was poor. I felt Munster should have made the change of the structure quite quickly after that first intercept try, because they kept on trying to go out the back, where actually the short runner was quite open. And I think we saw it late in the second half where they gave the ball to the short runner and he broke the line. So I feel like for me, that was not I wouldn't call it a classy performance from the Stormers, but I would definitely say Munster was poor and they played right into the hands of the Stormers.
Vickers, you're mentioning beautiful things right here. You're making me smile just listening to what you're saying. First of all, the Damien issue in terms of being on the ground, because I'm going to try and be as detailed as possible with this. Being on the ground as a pivot in any team, you want your playmakers to be on their feet because they can see where the gaps are, they can look at where the support is, and then obviously they can see if they need to purchase some territory as well. So if you're on the ground as a pivot, it doesn't give you, or it doesn't allow you to have these three elements as part of your arsenal on attack, where you say Damien taking a lot of contact and going down or dying with the ball is problematic, versus Mani, who would be on his feet and has the ability now to see where the support play is, where the gaps are, and then where the territory is if he needs to kick or chip and chase, or whichever way he wants to attack, which makes him a better 10 in this conversation. Am I getting this right?
Yeah, 100%. I think, look, a lot. If you have to make it, people understand is that when a team is on attack, whether you play from the 9 or 10, it's the 10's decision. So he's the one who's calling the shots. He's the one who's saying, play off the 9, play off the 9. Who's the one who's saying, play me? And he tells the forwards to play off him. And he's the same person, like you say, Scoop, who's looking at the backfield and looking where are the opportunities to drive their forwards backwards and drive your forwards forward. So if you are spending time on the ground, there's no one to make those calls. There's no one to make those shots. And like I said, if maybe their centers were a little bit more in a playmaking role, then we'll be talking something different. So you're 100% spot on in what you're saying.
Fair enough. Then Jade, wouldn't then it be a good idea to have Mani at 10 and then a Damien Willemse at 12? Because then it gives them this particular dynamic that we're discussing now.
Yeah, didn't they win the URC when they done that? They won the URC, right? And they made the
starting lineup.
Yeah, they won the URC when they done that. They beat La Rochelle last year as well when they done that. Last year in the quarterfinal, when They played La Rochelle in Cape Town. Damien Willemse almost won them the game from a moment of magic, and he played 12. He didn't play 15. So for me, with Damien Willemse, we're judging him now as a 10, which I feel is unfair. He's a utility back, and he made his name as a number 10 for Paul Roos. But I don't think that's his best position. I think his 15 or 12 is his better positions at the moment, and he's better utilized there. Like we always explained, I think Mani Lebok plays more heads-up rugby. He's more of a general. And yesterday, Damien Willemse came into the game in the second half. He had a much better second half when he started to, control the game more. Instead of taking the ball up, trying to sidestep everybody, he started to control the game, and he started, to get the Stormers in the right areas and really drive them up the park. That's what you want from a 10. You want him to be that quarterback and drive them up. So yeah, for me, I think Damien Willemse's best position is 12 or 15. I don't think he's international quality 10. I think he's a world-class player. Don't get me wrong. I think Damien Willemse, any team in the world would do with Damien Willemse. But I do not think at international level he's a world-class number 10. I think 12 or 15, that is his position. That's where he was. We saw the best of Damien Willemse at international level was at 12 or 15 at URC level as well. Just one quick thing on Munster. For Graham Roundtree and the guys, that's their third loss of the season. Should it be alarm bells for them? I don't think they'll be too happy. Although they played, Leinster and the Stormers as well in this first few games. But the third loss of the season. I don't think they'll be too happy about that. And I don't think they really think that or believe that, they've really started the season well. And the other thing is, I don't think they'll be too happy with the tactics and the decision making on the field.
Yeah, I wanted to bring Hugh into that particular discussion instead of talking about Damien Willemse sidestepping Harrods in Knightsbridge or Liberty in Soho. That's a UK joke, guys. Don't worry about it. Nonetheless, Hugh, looking at Munster, I think I mentioned a few elements or a few pointers regarding their game plan a while back. But looking at how they play structurally, I think Munster are a forward dominant team, and at the same time they put a lot of emphasis of their play around the breakdown. And if once they start winning that area of the game, they start kicking well in terms of putting your opposition under pressure in terms of those aerial bombs. And they're not a very expansive rugby team. They really play close quarters football in between the 250-meter channels. They rarely go wide. So once you nullify their strengths up front, they start unraveling. But from your side, looking at Munster yesterday and the Munster that we've seen in previous seasons when they won even the URC tournament, they were very structured. I'm not sure if we should start looking at calling Graham Roundtree out at this point, because they have copped a few losses last season or the season before as well when they won it, and they came back, played away from home, and still won the tournament. So for me, Munster, we can start talking about them not winning this competition around February, March. But your thoughts in yesterday's game?
Well, the first thing you need to know about Munster is they don't really turn up until after the Six Nations. So this is quite normal. You would expect them to be at their weakest sort of at this time of the season. They had a very tough European campaign last season as well. I would say that after the Six Nations is when they normally get going. That's when they put together their run when they won the league. And then last year, I think they got 7 out of 8 games. They won 8 games in a row, and 7 of them they got bonus points in. So this is normally Munster's weaker time of the year. As for the game plan, you're absolutely right. So all Irish teams, and I think this is credits to the organisation and the overall strategy in Irish rugby, all Irish teams play a variation on the same game plan. And it's based on high ball in play, high possession, and high number of phases. So they like to go through a lot of rucks. They like to, like we said, grind you down rather than cut through you. And Munster is not necessarily the most extreme version of that, but traditionally that is what Munster do. So going back in time, Munster aren't known for flash rugby. Irish rugby isn't really known for razzle dazzle. It's known for hard-working style of rugby. And if you were to look at the stats of a Leinster versus Munster game or an Ulster versus Munster game, you would see the tackle percentages well into the 90%. And that's because most of the carries are one-up carries, pick and go around the ruck. They don't like to go wide that much. That's just the Irish game plan. And when it works great, and it is very nice to watch. When it doesn't work, they have an ability to make 2 meters look like 20 meters. And they're just not winning those collisions. They're not getting over the game plans, and they struggle to do something else. I will say that I do think that the scoreline yesterday doesn't tell the story of the game. I think that Munster were a lot closer to it than that, and there was a period around 60 minutes or so where they looked like they might come back into the game. I think it was 21 points to 19 with 10, 15 minutes to go. So I do think the scoreline flatters the Stormers, and I do think that Dobbo's plan A is still put the best players on the pitch and cross his fingers that Damien Willemse or someone will dig him out of it. And on this occasion, Damien Willemse did dig the Stormers out. So I wouldn't worry about it too much from a Munster point of view. I still expect them to be well inside the playoffs at the end of the season. They're just going through the typical Munster rough patch at the moment. Their bench wasn't great in this game as well, in terms of the impacts that they had and also the personnel they had on the bench. You could tell Roundtree didn't want to use those players. He left Conor Murray on for a very long time. And just one of those. And the Stormers needed this victory a lot, because remember, they were rock bottom of the league as well. Another team like the Sharks, who I don't think, just because they won, I don't think they're fixed.
Yeah. I think the Sharks have a long way to go. A long way, actually, to go. A team we don't talk about, Jade. Looking at the log of the URC, Leinster, number 1, 5 from 5. Golden Lions. Or are they just called the Lions now? Number 2, 4 from 4. Winning at home, winning away from home. A team we did say at the beginning of the season that they should or would be within a playoff spot. But now they seem to be doing very well. Better than the Warriors after 5 rounds, better than the Blue Bulls after 5 rounds, better than the other South African counterparts, the Stormers and the Sharks, after 5 rounds. Beginning of their coach's career. Who's this coach now? Is Cash van Rooyen. Everyone was talking about him being a physio. Jacques Nienaber was a physio. But yeah, being a physio and not having enough experience. Eating hot dogs. Apparently that was one of the famous lines at the Lions. Eating hot dogs on tour. There's been a lot of development over the years. There's been a lot of chopping and changing of coaching staff over the years. But they seem to have settled finally after 3 or 4 years in the mud, for lack of a better word. But now they seem to have settled, and now they seem to be winning the games that they wouldn't have won 2-3 seasons ago. But take me through the Golden Lion or the Lions. Golden Lions.
The Golden Lions.
It's the cat.
No, man, look.
Cats.
The Cats, I think Scoop still thinks, Kitch Christie and, those guys are coaching the Lions, Golden Lions. But no, listen, in terms of the Lions, you have to give Strowley and, the guys over there, you have to give them, their flowers and say well done to them. Because if you look at the under-19s and under-21s as well, not a lot of people follow it, but they haven't been doing too bad there. And for what they have, and they do not have the biggest squad. They similar, I think, just a little bit off than what the Cheetahs have here, in terms of player resources, maybe just more because they're playing in the UFC. But in terms of developing players, in terms of, getting these gems and finding these gems from out of nowhere, we saw the Chuchuka brothers. We've seen the likes of, they just retired. Lionel Mapu and those guys just retired now, but that era. But we've seen numerous guys come through from the Lions. We've seen the Lions resurrect guys' career. We looked at Nwamba, Edward van der Merwe, those guys. For me, that is what the Lions has always been about. Especially now, since the John Mitchell era there, that's the kind of players that we're looking at signing. But where they are now, I mean, they've got 4 out of 4. They're sitting clearly pretty, in a good position. As for them now do they become ambitious? And this is where I would like to get views input. I mean, as a coach, if you do set your standard and you do set your target. So obviously their target this year has been, let's try and make the Champions Cup. Let's try and make the top 8. That's our main goal for the season. Now they've got 4 out of 4. Do you just tell the guys, listen, let's continue with this momentum. Let's go see how long we can ride this wave, because that's what I would do. And forget, and then remember that, the top 8 is my position. The top 8 is where we want to be. Because realistically, if you're looking at the other squads, what they have, down the line, we'll get injuries. They have a deeper squad, coming to the playoffs. They have more senior international players. We might get caught short there. But let's try and make the top 8. Or do you go ahead and say, you know what, guys, let's set a new target. Let's go top 4. Let's try and get a home quarterfinal, because we're in a good position now. Let's work on that. Let's forget about top 8 because we did the groundwork. Let's go, top 4. I'd certainly ask Cash and say, why not? Because they clearly have, the character in that squad to beat anybody on the day. They're not going to stand back. I mean, who's going to come to Joburg in the middle of summer and play the Lions at 1 o'clock, 2 3 o'clock in the afternoon? They're going to struggle. I don't even think they're scared of the SA derbies anymore, because, I mean, they fancy their chances against the Sharks. The same Sharks team, I know Eben and Searam didn't play, but they were very unlucky to lose in the Currie Cup final. I really think the Lions and the Stormers had to play tomorrow. I'll put my money on the Lions winning. I think they fancy their chances against the Bulls as well. So I think Cash can set a new standard or a new goal and say, why not? Let's push for a home quarterfinal and take it from there. For you, how do you do this as a coach? I mean, you set your target going in, and do you adjust as you go on, or do you just look at your overall target, and say, okay, no, top 8 is we want to be. Whatever we get after that is a bonus.
Yeah, I think it would be different how you would look at it. I mean, the first things first, like you said, the quarters, they need to make the top 8. And for them to be able to do that, they need to get there. They need to make sure that they're winning. I think what most coaches and leaders would do is they would look at obviously what they up against in terms of those games, home and away games, and then take it from there. I think when you look at the Lions, they'll probably want to win all their home games. So then, once they win their home games, they'll look at what can we take from our travels, and then they'll probably look at how they can obviously get as much points as possible. I don't think they would jump at the idea of quickly and say home quarter. I don't think they would jump at that idea quickly. I think they would start to look at when it comes to next year, roughly February, March, where are they on the log and what can they get? So they'll probably take it from game to game. And I noticed is that when I was with the Kings, we used to break it up into two parts. It's the year before, obviously this year. Where will you finish by the end of December? End of December, which is your January phase, when the international players from Europe starts going to the Six Nations. And then how many games can you win in that period that they're not available? And then from there, what position would you be in to be able to obviously make an impact in the top 8? So I think that's how they'll break it up. But in my thinking, I think they wouldn't rush so quickly and start to think home quarterfinal. I think they would probably, like I said, break it up a little bit and see what they can do for the remainder of this year, and obviously what they can do when the Six Nations is on next year. Yeah, and Cash was a fitness trainer, so with all the hot dogs.
Hugh Griffin, there's a storm brewing out in Leinster. Looking at how RG Snyman, I don't know, man. Something. Once players start moving from Munster to Leinster, there seems to be this aura. There seems to be a lot of traffic on the socials as well. Leinster have this thing of attracting good talent, quote unquote. And once that talent moves over, they get a lot of reception, good reception, that is, and anything that you do within that squad, especially if you're a player from outside of the Irish regions, is seen as spectacular. Looking at RG Snyman has come in, and pretty much there's been a good following on social medias on our timeline. He's doing wonderful things that he's always done, but obviously now there seems to be an added ingredient to whatever he's doing. And I can't help think that maybe RG Snyman and maybe having a Jacques Nienaber there at Leinster there could be a possibility of Jacques Nienaber having a good influence on RG Snyman, and we might see him play throughout the season for the first time. What are your thoughts regarding this?
Yeah, I think that, as you said, the big part of it is that they've actually gotten him fit and gotten him playing rugby matches. That's something that Munster really struggled to do. And, I really think that we need to, just as a general point about rugby overall, is we need to start looking at the teams that have perpetual injury crises, whether that's Munster, who always seem to have one, or whether it's the Welsh regions who never seem to be able to keep the physio room quiet, and the teams that manage to keep the majority of their players fit. And Leinster seem to be one of, if not the best team at managing their squad and keeping players fit. And Snyman has gone in there and is performing very well, and he's starting games and he's playing a lot of minutes, which we're not used to seeing from him. I think from an environment point of view, Leinster's got to be one of the best environments, not just as a rugby player, but just as a professional environment to be in. I mean, I've not experienced it as a rugby player, obviously, but I've experienced it in other walks of life where you go from an environment there were people there who weren't bothered about being there, and there's people, you go to another environment where everybody's happy to be there and everyone wants to be the best they can be. And I think Leinster's very much that environment. It's in order to even train with Leinster, because of their pathways, you have to be very, very, very good. So I can imagine as a professional athlete, it's an incredible environment to be in, and I'm not surprised that it's bringing the best out of him. You've got to remember that they've got the most money to throw at the facilities and training, etc., etc. So I can only imagine that he's really enjoying his time there. I think he might be feeling a little bit cold by how his time at Munster ended. It's kind of painted that he walked out of Munster, but that's not really true. Munster had a choice between him and John Klein as the non-Irish qualified lock, and they picked John Klein. So RG Snyman might be proving a bit of a point there by going to Leinster. So it just seems to be a move that's working out. But being a non-Irish qualified player, the expectation will be that he plays most games of the season. He won't get rotated like the rest of his Irish qualified colleagues. So if he is going to break, it will be sooner rather than later, because he's going to get played a lot.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I think we can expect good things from RG Snyman going forward. I mean, he's a wonderful talent. He's a tower on that rugby field. He's got very good ball skills as well. He could become one of the great locks if he really stays fit. And obviously, the Springboks now looking at probably somebody to take over an Itzebeth role, for example. I think RG Snyman could be that guy going forward if everything stays, if he stays fit, basically, and not in the physio's room. Moving on now to Down Under, the land of the long white cloud, as we near or about to close off this particular episode. Jade, there was a semi-final of the NPC this past weekend. There's a final next weekend, but at the same time, next weekend, the Allblacks are taking on Japan. Basically, your views on the current NPC tournament and looking at how things finished off. I mean, Crusaders were probably sixth or seventh. They beat the number. They beat the number 2.
Canterbury.
Canterbury, same thing. Canterbury were like 6th or 7th, made it into the quarters, beat the number 2 seed side Tasman. Waikato were like also 6 or 7 around there. They beat a number 3 seeded team in a quarterfinal to make it into the semis. But I mean, it wasn't it wasn't a really straightforward NPC this season, where I remember you also said or touched on how much of unpredictable it is. But obviously we've seen up and down, not so really consistent performances, but in general, it seems like there's been a good reception in terms of the public, in terms of viewership, in terms of the product as well. What are your thoughts regarding this? And then we can touch on the Japan All Blacks game next week.
No, look, I mean, even Scrumming Flyer will agree with us. He loved the NPC this year. It's been absolutely a joy to watch in the morning. Unpredictable, like I said, but if you look at it overall, the two most consistent teams is playing in the final. Maybe Tasman, but unlucky last week against against Crusaders, Christchurch, Canterbury. But unfortunately, they didn't go through, and Canterbury had a few All Blacks in there. They gave them, shocked them, but. For me, Bay of Plenty, Wellington, it's been the two consistent teams this year. I think both of them, especially that atmosphere with Bay of Plenty at home, the Steamers has really been good at home. They've got a few cult heroes there, the Aquays, former Welsh player, Holo, playing there, coming back, Narawa, all of those guys have been playing well. And then you look at Wellington, I mean, they've also done really, really well this season. They've been consistent, basically just carried on from what the Hurricanes has done in Super Rugby and, brought that into the NPC and the Bunnings NPC. And, they've really been, so far, the team to beat, I think, who has the shield now? I think that's where, Taranaki has the shield. So Taranaki goes with a ran for his shield. But, I mean, Wellington and Bay of Plenty has really been the two consistent teams this year. For me, the nice thing, is to see guys like, Brad Shields have a crack at it again. Aaron Cruden, rolling back the years, the weekend. They really had a good performance for Waikato. And then you have your youngsters coming through, your guys that you really... You can see them being future All Blacks. Riley Egan's, like I mentioned, and then this freak that's at Waikato, Ollie Mathis, can play wing or he can play flank. He's actually a 19-year-old open side flank and then moved onto the wing. But he's been absolutely brilliant for Waikato. So overall, I think really the NPC, I like it when the time of the year when it's done, they don't have to have you or see you anything that side. So Super Rugby's finished and they go and play for their franchises. I like the way we spoke about it before, the way the guys are split up. I mean, you've seen guys play for smaller teams like Southland and Ethan de Groots playing there and guys playing for Otago, for Auckland, for your Oskins and your Charlton Papalis playing for Counties Monaco. We've seen all of these smaller teams, come through and, given the big teams are hiding now and then. So I really think it's a good tournament. I think it's a joy to watch in the morning. I think that, they could really be positive this year in terms of the NPC, and I think the two best teams in the final. But yeah, that's so far for me on the NPC. Let's see how it goes the weekend. I was hoping, that the Bay of Plenty could have hosted the final because, I mean, the atmosphere and, the way the ground is situated and, that smaller ground would really be nice for them to host the final. But yeah, let's see how they go on against Wellington the weekend.
Yeah, there was a comment obviously earlier on in this week that teams with the name Lions as their mascot are winning in empty stadiums. So looking at Johannesburg, looking at Wellington. Anyway, moving along. Vickers, I mean, we've spoken a lot about the All Blacks previously, but I mean, I'm sure there are players that you would like to see at least play against Japan this next weekend. And obviously, I think we're not even going to do predictions with this particular one. But yeah, knowing Eddie Jones, he could pull off an upset. 2015, we saw what happened at the Rugby World Cup. But nonetheless, who are the players maybe that come to mind for you that you would probably like to see in the black jersey for this particular weekend's game to kick off the autumn series for the All Blacks and obviously the other fixtures taking place 2 weeks from now?
Yeah, I think we've had a chat about it during the Rugby Championship. I think for me, I would really love to see a different loose trio. The other positions are pretty settled. I think they're pretty settled. I would really love to see a different loose trio, like we've discussed on the pod, RD maybe moving to 7, maybe Sititi moving to 8. So I would really love to see a different loose trio. Other than that, the rest of the positions are pretty settled. I still believe Bowden Barrett should be the 10, not DMAC. And obviously Will Jordan probably take 15. And then, I think for me, that's the only changes that I would like to see, but I doubt it would happen. Remember, as was discussed before, Razor is also still on his first year in coaching the team, so he's also looking at more continuity and stability.
Yeah. Hugh, your thoughts on Japan taking New Zealand? And then, Jade, you can close it off.
Well, I'm glad you asked me because I've posted a video about Japan. I did a deep dive with Brendan Shields from Rugbycology. That's on my YouTube channel now if anybody's interested to check it out. From a Japan point of view, they're trying this new game plan. Eddie Jones is trying to do this fastest team in the world thing, and they've got a lot of new players in, and it's very pretty to watch for a bit, but then they're just not fit enough. I'm not sure any rugby team will be fit enough to play for 80 minutes. They always fall off a cliff badly in the second half, and they got smashed in the Pacific Nations Cup final by what was essentially the Drua team. So Japan's best side is getting beaten by a mid-table Super Rugby team. That's kind of where Japan are at the moment. Eddie's very ambitious with this game plan, and I do think that if rugby's laws keep going the way that they're going, I think this Japan game plan will have a lot of elements of it copied by other nations moving forward. But right now, I mean, it depends what kind of team that the All Blacks play. It's proper All Blacks, not an All Blacks 15, isn't it?
No, it's a proper All Black. it's
Okay.
a proper. The All Blacks
Yeah.
15, they've selected the squad, and then I think they start training after the NPC final next weekend. So it's the proper All Blacks in Japan, yeah.
So, yeah, it could get a bit ugly. Players to watch out for, I suppose. Players to watch out for from the Japanese point of view. Players, people listening might not know. Dylan Riley, their outside centre, phenomenal player. The solo tries that he scored during the Pacific Nations Cup were unbelievable. A one-man highlights reel. He scored in every single game. Lee is injured. They had this fly half come fullback Lee, who was the top scorer in the PNC, was injured, unfortunately. Warner Dearns, the second row, absolutely incredible player, massive. I think he's Australian born, I want to say.
He's New Zealander.
New Zealander, okay. Thanks, Jade. So he's a phenomenal player, ball in hand. He's very dynamic, very athletic. Who else? And they've got Wanga as well is their second row. He's a Fijian, very, very good. They're the kind of main ones to watch out for, really. But the Japanese game plan is all built around speed. So expect to see them taking a lot of tap and goes, playing very quickly. Their exits are very, very good. And just generally their organisation, Eddie Jones has got them very well drilled. I should imagine there's a lot of repetition, a lot of long hours on the training field for them to get to where they are. I just would expect in the second half them to start really struggling against the All Blacks.
Fair enough. Jade, close us off. What are you expecting? And then, I will shut the gates, close the taps, as they say.
No, listen. I expect, nothing of the dominant performance from the All Blacks. I don't think this Japanese team was as good as they were in the 2019 and 2015 World Cup. I think they're in the rebuilding phase, and I think, Razor's got to be clever with his selection. He's got to give a few guys that hasn't played, to ensure that they're fresh for the English game the next week, because that's the real big one. If he does bad against England and loses against England, he starts with this horrible tour that he has on the wrong foot, on the back foot. So he doesn't want to do that. So I expect him, to have experienced players around, a few guys that get opportunity, like your Billy Proctors, your Peter Lack guys, maybe Ruben Love at fullback. But then you'll see your McKenzie or your Bowden at 10. Cam Roycott will start, but your Audie Savia, your Satitis, your Scott Barretts, Cody Taylors and those guys I expect to start this game as well, just to get a 40, 50 minutes out, and then, you take it from there. But yeah, I mean, nothing more than a convincing All Blacks performance the weekend, because I don't think Japan is as strong. And like you said, if they're going to make the game fast and the ball's turned over, it's played straight into New Zealand's hands.
Fair enough. That brings us to an end of this particular show. If you're a big fan of the Gallagher Premiership, Bath beating Harlequins, Northampton Saints beating Sale Sharks, and obviously Newcastle beating Exeter over this past weekend. The blockbuster match was between Saracens and Bristol. Oh man, high-scoring game, over 70 points, but Saracens coming on top, 37-35. Nonetheless, thank you to everybody for listening in, and thank you for joining in. Follow everyone that's on this pod at Vuyozanga, at HG Rugby, or at Hugh Griffin Rugby, at Jade Craig on the socials, and obviously you can follow us at rugby_scoop. But you can catch us on Spotify, you can catch us on YouTube, you can find us on Facebook. We are everywhere. Instagram, it's all happening. Nonetheless, guys, thank you very much for joining in, and have a wonderful Sunday and enjoy the rest of the week. Test Rugby kicks off next week. Who is gonna win? Cheers, guys. Bye.
Cheers, everybody.
Cheers, bye.
Cheers.